Cancer is curable now. However, it is not cured with medicine or drugs, but with knowledge. And this knowledge is brought to you today by our special guest, Sherrill Selman, author of The Hormone Heresy, What Women Must Know About Their Hormones, and What Women Must Know to Protect Their Daughters from Breast Cancer. It's very nice to have you here in the show today. And what a lot of people have asked in our newsletters and from our newsletters was in regards to hormones. And you know, it's a very big theme. It's a very complicated theme to get into. So we thought we invite you and ask you, in the very first stage, what has made you interested in women's hormones, in the whole process of understanding about hormones?
Marcus, like so many people, it's our own personal journey that determines so much of our purpose in life. So for me, I went through a period of my life in my 40s when things were really starting to go haywire. I was having anxiety attacks every morning about 4 a.m. That was a consistent thing for a year. I also was experiencing, aside from insomnia and anxiety, I was also getting night sweats. I had other things. I had allergies. I had arthritis starting to show up. I also was diagnosed with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which is an autoimmune disease of the thyroid. So, all of a sudden my body started falling apart. And it was the night sweats that really were the blessing in disguise, because I had to really pursue the hormone, angle of things. Other than that, I was a psychotherapist back then, so I thought anxiety attacks meant I had to deal with psychological issues. But it was the night sweats that really made me pursue the hormonal side of things. And it was like Alice going through the rabbit hole. Once I started to investigate what was really behind these night sweats, I uncovered a startling world in regards to hormones and hormone myths and misinformation. I just wanted to sort out my own night sweats, and I did, by the way. I learned that it was the result of a variety of imbalances that had to do with high estrogen and low progesterone, that had to do with other things, which we'll talk about as well. But in the course of seeking that solution, I really began to research very fervently what was really going on with hormones and what women really needed to know so they could balance their hormones.
Yeah. I think it's also, it's like everybody we asked, every single doctor or naturopath we asked was moved into a particular theme very, very intensely by own problems or by problems within their family and relatives. So it's, again, blessings in disguise.
Yes, we call that the wounded healer syndrome. It's true. Every person I've talked to who has a passion in the field of healing have personally encountered some health challenge, or like you said, someone close to them. And it's part of what gives us authority, because we've been there, we've done it, we've had to deal with it, and now we're sharing that knowledge.
That's it. And that's the blessing. So sometimes we don't link those two. And for me, it's kind of a passion to always link the negative with the positive, so that we don't look at the negative as something, which we want to avoid in our life. We actually start to appreciate it, how it came into our life. So that's just at the side. But what are the main keys that you've discovered? The main myth and also the main blessings in regards to hormones?
Well, this was a huge revelation for me as I started to research and investigate what's really going on with hormones. I encountered so many myths, and the thing that I was really upset about was that unless we have solid foundation of information, we can't make the best informed decisions regarding our health and course of treatment. So what I discovered was really an upside down world. Everything that we as women were being taught about our hormones and our bodies and just being women actually turns out to be wrong. And we just have to start with the basic perception of women. 2,500 years ago, Hippocrates, the father of modern medicine, everyone knows Hippocrates, had something to say about the medical profession's perception of women. And he said this was his rhetorical question: what is woman? And his response was disease. So we need to really understand that that was the prevailing belief about the very essence of women's physiology for the past 2,500 years. That women were perceived by the medical profession as innately flawed, that their reproductive organs were a source of so much of their illness and misery and craziness. And we were treated as though we were inferior and were born with this inferiority because we had these female organs. And unfortunately, through my research, even though we're in the 21st century, we think we're in a more enlightened 21st century, there has not been as much shift of paradigms as we would like. We are still, by the general medical profession, perceived as innately flawed by being a woman. So that's one myth. The other myth is that the ovaries fail at menopause. So we have been taught that there's a time when our body works and then it all begins to fall apart, and that's menopause. And at menopause, the myth is that the ovaries fail and we cease to produce estrogen. And that gave birth to the whole, approach to, first of all, hormone replacement therapy. And then after that got into disfavor because we're talking about the use of synthetic estrogens and progestins. We've emerged into a time of bioidentical hormones, which does also have some pitfalls. We need to understand that replacing hormones, unless a woman truly needs it, may not be in her best interest. It's not a general trend that every woman has to deal with. So the myth is that our ovaries fail and we cease producing estrogen, and basically everything starts falling apart after we go through menopause. That's a myth, and we'll talk about the other side of that in a little bit. There's another myth. Another myth is that when a woman usually in her 40s, somewhere in her 40s, starts experiencing hot flashes, night sweats like I was doing, when we're experiencing perhaps migraine, weight gain, mood swings, there's a variety of symptoms that go on, most notably in our culture. It's hot flashes, night sweats. By the way, it doesn't exist across the board. There are other cultures, such as in Southeast Asia, which do not have experiences of hot flashes in menopause. So this is a cultural thing, basically a dietary lifestyle creation. And when a woman goes to the doctor, she is told that she needs hormones because this is a symptom of menopause. It's actually a symptom of perimenopause. And the myth is that perimenopausal symptoms occur because a woman is running out of estrogen. That's another big myth, that in this period, 5 to 10 years before her menstrual cycle comes to a complete cessation, that she is running out of estrogen, and often that's when women are put on hormone replacement therapy. That's a myth. And one more thing I want to say that I think is really important. The myth is that the pill, which is composed of similar hormones, estrogens and progestins, that women are put on with HRT, but in higher amounts on the pill, that the pill is perceived as something that regulates a woman's period. I was at the age of 16 put on the pill to regulate my period. I still talk to women as I lecture around the world who are put on the pill to regulate their period, that the pill is safe, effective, will regulate their menstrual cycles, and is actually the best thing since sliced bread, because now the pill is being recommended, prescribed to young women for the ability to totally shut off their menstrual cycles, and that somehow this is good, that women have control and no longer need to menstruate, or we can regulate menstruation. That is a myth. Okay, so those are some key myths. Let's talk about some of the truths. Okay, so the truth is that a woman's body is probably one of the most intelligent creations, of the, of life. Women outlive men. We know that to be true. That women's bodies are intimately connected to their own intuitive nature, which is why women in traditional indigenous cultures are always taught to listen, to pay attention, because their wisdom comes from within. We actually are stronger. We have more resilience. We can survive longer. We,
My wife
actually
says
have.
that all the time.
It's true. It's true, and so we are not innately flawed. We are not cursed with having this female body, but it is more sensitive. It's like it gives us immediate feedback because we are so much more emotionally based, and we respond to stressors so much more. Our body will give us feedback. We are, whether you like it or not, when we are out of balance, our body will let us know much sooner than
Yeah.
a man will.
I think it's the ignorance. Men have rather the tendency to ignore all those factors and just keep going because it's their task or it's their inbuilt system. But a woman has a lot more that reaction to her physical nature.
It's true. Men are more testosterone driven. Testosterone is really, you're out there single focused to accomplish a mission. You're not really there being self-reflective as much. Women, their hormones, their brain chemistry innately makes them more aware, more sensitive, more compassionate, more inner focus. So we pay more attention. That's part of what we needed to do for survival of the family, the tribe. We had to be aware and multitask all the time. Another thing about the truths is that the ovaries actually are not designed to fail. Our ovaries work, and this I have to say was startling information for me and for most women who hear this. Our ovaries are designed to function the entire length of our life. That it's not like the ovaries give up the ghost and that's it by any means. That we are reducing our estrogen by 40 to 60% when we go into menopause because that cycle of our life frees us from childbearing, child rearing, and we are more in our wisdom years, and we are really, designed to focus on other things when we go into that stage of our life. That's why being a grandparent is so much fun. We can enjoy our grandkids, play with them, and then send them home because we have other things to be doing, right? So the ovaries don't fail. Isn't that amazing? And yes, there is a reduction of estrogen by 40 to 60%. There is a huge drop of progesterone because we must ovulate to make progesterone. So menstruating years is the time when we're producing progesterone, but in nature's wisdom, there are backup systems available to us as women. And one of the big backup systems happens to be our adrenal glands. And with proper functioning adrenal glands, we are making estrogen, we're making a little bit of progesterone, we're making other hormones that are progesterone-like in nature and testosterone. So as long as we have strong adrenals, which is another topic we can talk about, then our body is able, in fact, our fat cells make estrogen. So if we have some fat on us, too much fat is not good, but just to understand that fat is a way that we are producing estrogen to support our body's ability to function through different stages of our lives. So that to me was phenomenal, that that our body is functioning our ovaries are functioning the entire length. They just switch gears a bit. And the other myth is this perimenopausal time that is perceived as a time of declining estrogen levels, that hot flashes, night sweats, insomnia, mood swings are all about this reduction, lowering, declining estrogen levels. And that is also a myth. And one of the researchers in Canada, Dr. Geraldine Pryor, who's an endocrinologist, put this to bed. She actually did studies and showed that perimenopause is a time when women are making some of the highest levels of estrogen in their life. It's like the last big hurrah of the ovaries. So the pituitary is just giving strong messages to try to get those ovaries to just ovulate one more time, in conjunction with low progesterone levels, because in these perimenopausal years, women are not menstruating as regularly every month. So they're maybe skipping cycles, and that means they're not producing this key hormone, progesterone, that is the partner to estrogen. Estrogen's nature is to proliferate cell growth, which is why it's necessary for menstruation. It thickens the lining of our uterus. But progesterone says, well, no, let's put the brakes on it so you don't proliferate too much, because proliferation unchecked can cause proliferation of cancer cells, which is where breast cancer comes in and other estrogen hormone-driven cancers. So perimenopause is a time of high estrogen levels, low progesterone. We call that estrogen dominance. The last thing you want when you are in an estrogen dominant phase of your life is to be put on more hormones, which will raise those estrogen levels even more. And one last thing is the pill actually is, I think, it's a disaster for women's health. It is known to be a risk factor for blood clots and strokes and breast cancer. It depletes the body of key vitamins and minerals and can impair the thyroid. It acts like an antibiotic, wipes out your gut flora, can create infertility in women, and it never regulates a menstrual cycle. It is the biggest myth going. The pill shuts off a woman's reproductive cycles. It's like her ovaries are taken offline. So when women are on the pill, they are putting huge amounts of synthetic hormones in their bodies. They're putting toxins in their bodies. They're depleting their body of nutrients. And one of the quotes I have in my book is from a billionaire who made his fortune from fertility drugs, who said that his best customers are women in their 30s who took the pill as teenagers and 20-year-olds. So every way we have been told we need to, manipulate our hormones and we need to improve our health with our synthetic hormones is actually part of the big lie.
Yeah, like pretty much everything in that concern. But it's the convenience. People are just living in such a fast-paced world, especially today, that they're not interested in, being careful and watching out. So the pill is actually a very convenient thing, and it moves into even more drastic means now, where they change the pill to, longer breaks and shorter periods in between.
Well, it's true, and this is why we're having this conversation, because we have to be informed in order to make the best decisions. Women are put on the pill for heavy periods, painful periods, lack of periods, endometriosis. They're put on it for ovarian cysts. They used to be put on it for perimenopausal symptoms. I hope no one's doing that anymore. But see, the pill will never get a woman healthy. That's the myth. The body is out of balance. If you have ovarian cysts and painful periods and endometriosis, you have serious chronic underlying issues. The pill is that Band-Aid that suppresses the symptoms possibly, but creates much greater imbalances and potentially much more chronic conditions down the track. But women aren't told that because their doctors say this is the best thing that you can possibly doing. It's totally safe and wonderful. It'll help you.
I know
It'll
children
help
in our... Sorry. Yeah, I know children that are actually on the pill just with 13 and 14 already because of acne in their face.
Yes. So, we've been sold a bill of goods about the safety of the pill. We know it increases the risk of breast cancer and autoimmune diseases and thyroid imbalances and strokes blood clots, that's still a very big risk, and it's not safe. And doctors are part of the problem because they've been taught that it is totally safe, and we're still giving that message. So this is where I'm on a mission here to try to wake women up and wake everyone up to what's going on.
Yeah, but I think it's not only the pill which causes all that havoc and all those difficulties. There is a lot more elements, and I think that's very important that we understand the root causes to all those problems and why cancer rates are so dramatically going up and hormone imbalances.
Well, yes, there are many things, and we could spend a day talking about them. I'll cover them briefly. Okay. Well, first of all, the underlying hormonal imbalance is this condition called estrogen dominance, and that is this imbalance between estrogen and progesterone. These are dance partners, and they have their role together when they're in balance. As we said earlier, estrogen is pro-inflammatory, it is proliferative, very important hormone for fertility, for menstruation, for our brain function. I mean, it has many roles, but it must be in proper balance. And we are living in times right now, due to toxins in the environment, due to exposure to a variety of foods that we're eating, the exposure to EMFs. That's a whole other issue that alters our hormones. Our cell phone use, our wireless technology has been shown to alter hormones in the direction of too much estrogen, too little progesterone. Stress will lead us to too much estrogen, too little progesterone. And by the way, this is also true for men. Men, I just want to insert this here, that men over 50 have higher levels of estrogen in their bodies than women of the same age. And that will put them at risk of prostate cancer. So when when men have those bellies, they're those little estrogen producing bellies that they have, and it's actually showing in research that men have really high levels of estrogen, and it causes their testosterone levels to go down, and that puts them at risk of many conditions as well. So we have this estrogen dominant phenomenon going on in the Western world, and men and women are much too high in estrogen and too low in progesterone for women, too low in testosterone for men, and that's a very dangerous imbalance. That drives a variety of conditions that actually can lead to hormone-dependent cancers. It can lead to, it can lead to strokes. It can lead to heart conditions. It can lead to all sorts of inflammatory conditions, because too much estrogen drives inflammation, which is already a big problem, especially regarding cancers. So that's the hormonal imbalance that we're being faced with right now. And as I said, stress will drive it up, and our adrenals are getting dysfunctional. We're producing a lot of the stress hormones that will block progesterone and increase estrogen and increase insulin and depress thyroid. So all these things work together. So we really need to understand the role of balancing our hormones, and that's where diet, clean foods, reduce exposure to chemicals, reduce our stress levels, really nourishing the body, detoxifying the body will have a huge impact on hormone expression.
The causes that we have, they are all, equal for men and women. They are not only for single-sided. They are in our food, and we've talked about that in the movie quite intensely with all the plastics, with everything. But what are the main things that besides the pill and besides those extreme hormone disruptors, but what else is really important that we start out. I've been just reading, and Sabrina is completely fascinated. She's working through with our daughter now with the book that you've written, What Women Must Know to Protect Their Children from Breast Cancer. It's quite overwhelming, the amount of things and the intensity, how they disturb our hormonal balance. And what are the main things that you would say everybody needs to really radically change and know about?
Well, let me just say I wrote that book, What Women Must Know to Protect Their Daughters from Breast Cancer. And it's also true for our sons and, our children. But I'm just focusing on women because that's my focus. And I wrote that book because I was meeting more and more young women, 30 or younger, who were being diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was a shock to me because breast cancer at one stage in our culture was really a disease of older women, generally women 70s, 80s. Then we see it coming down. So it was now 60s and 50s and then 40s. But now I was meeting women in their 20s and 30s. And I just said, oh my gosh, and it wasn't just one. I was meeting, more and more as I was lecturing all over the world. And I said, this is horrible. This is unnatural. This is a warning. This is a wake-up call. Something serious is going on here. And that is why I wrote this book. And I looked at, many factors, pulling many things together. There's a lot of information in that book. And, one of the most important things we need to understand that we are putting things in play in utero that actually can predispose our children to chronic illnesses, including things like cancer. I think it was the National Institute of Health says 90 to 95% of all cancers come from stress or diet toxicity. I mean, that message is over and over again in your wonderful documentary. It's stress and toxicity, That's what's causing our body to go so out of balance. Well, that toxicity, as you know, starts in the womb. And there are so many things that are challenging us from all the chemicals. There's a recent study that came out, a very recent study in the last month or so, talking about bisphenol A. Now, bisphenol A is a chemical that is put into plastic bottles or water bottles. It is the sealant of tin cans. It's a dental sealant. We put it on the teeth of our children. It's in these sealants. Now, bisphenol leaks out in all circumstances. It leaks out. Now, bisphenol A is a hormone disruptor mimicking estrogen. It's very estrogenic. It has been associated. Exposure to bisphenol A has been associated with increased risk of early puberty, of breast cancer, of prostate cancer, of insulin resistance, predisposing people later in life to diabetes, being overweight. I mean, there are many, many problems with bisphenol A. So what this study that just was published did, they took 5 families and they ate a normal diet, processed foods, canned foods, plastic wrap, and all that stuff. And then they put them on a week or 3 days even, I think, of just totally organic food, no exposure to bisphenol A whatsoever. And then they put them back on their normal diet. And they found in 1 week a 65% reduction in the blood of the family members of bisphenol A. And those that had the highest exposure of bisphenol A before the study started, so they were really accumulating a lot. When they went on those 3 days of just eating organic fresh foods, there was a 75% reduction of bisphenol A levels in the blood of those family members. Now that's radical. That's a radical study because, first of all, it's showing that we are exposed to bisphenol A. And it also shows the importance of why we want to eat fresh organic foods, because just a few days of switching your diet over can allow the body to clear these chemicals out and radically improve those toxic levels that have been hanging out in our body. And since bisphenol A is such a dangerous drug that drives so many conditions to hormonal imbalance, that in itself should be a big wake-up call for people. We've got to get processed foods out of our diet. We have to. The only company that I'm aware of that does not put a sealant in their tin cans is Eden Foods. Everything else does. I like coconut milk, and I was buying it in the tin cans. I was even buying it in Whole Foods. Well, coconut milk, it's a fat. There's fat in coconut milk, healthy fat, but it's one of those foods that can easily absorb chemicals. And it turns out that one of the top foods that have high bisphenol A in tin cans is coconut milk. So, oh gosh, so now I have to try to find Tetra Paks or something. But I think that is the big message I want to give to people. It does make a difference what you eat, and the fact that you eat clean, fresh foods. It makes a huge difference. And because toxicity is driving hormonal imbalance and overwhelming the liver and acting as hormone disruptors and doing all sorts of things we don't even know when they all get together, the more we reduce exposure, especially for our children, the better off they will be in the long term. And the more they will preserve healthy genes, because that's the other thing. The foods that we're exposed to, the nutritional deficiencies we're exposed to, the toxins we're exposed to will impact our gene expression. And we are altering our gene expression adversely from the use of all the processed fast foods. And that is being passed on to our children. And we need to reverse that by putting nutrient-dense foods back into the diet free of chemicals.
Yeah, I think it's for people to understand, it's really like a barrel. Once we're born, we have already a lot of content of toxins in that barrel. And as we live an unhealthy lifestyle with fast food and processed food and loads of plastics, and when you see, what toys children play with and all the colors and the clothing and flame retardants, as you said in the movie, it's all absorbed, and it's like that barrel fills up, and at a certain stage it overflows. And depending on the volume that we fill in, that can be already at the age of 5, 6, 7, which we see with lots of children which have already, puberty at that age, or girls which develop boobs at that age, which is really, like just the extreme mimic of those hormones.
I have a whole chapter on precocious. I was really so shocked and horrified through my research. The fact that 1 out of 6 8-year-olds are going into puberty now. 1 out of 6. I mean, I've been contacted by parents of 5, 6-year-olds that are showing signs of puberty. I mean, this is, talk about a canary in the coal mine. This is a huge problem that's looming on us, because this is an aberration. It's abnormal. It's these children are so affected when they go into puberty. They're affected socially, psychologically. Their bodies are never really designed to be going through puberty when you're 5, 6, 7. I mean, it is such a common thing now that the age of puberty is consistently being lowered and accepted as normal. 11-year-old girl or 10.9, I don't know what it is now, is considered normal. I mean, when I was going through puberty, and in traditional cultures, the average age for puberty is 15 or 16 or 17. Now we are seeing 10-year-olds who look and have the bodies of 16-year-olds and also have the hormone surges of a 16-year-old. That's scary. And we have created this condition through exposure to the chemicals that, in utero, and then what is exposed to from the time a child is born. It's driving this. And then combine that with junk food and the high sugar and the lack of nutrients to support the body. Everything is driving these imbalances that have serious consequences to the health and fertility of our children, and little boys as well. Some of them are going through early puberty. Some are delayed. Some of them have all sorts of deformities like hypospadia from these exposures, and there's lots of things going on, and our children are those little canaries in the coal mine that are actually being affected by how much we have altered our environment and our world from this ubiquitous exposure to toxic chemicals and toxic foods.
Yeah. When we were thinking about the title for the movie, we went through many different stages. And at one stage, the title "Cancer is Curable Now" was fixed. But then the subtitle was really our main concern. But it's not curable with medicine or drugs or with a kind of pill or quick fix solution, however, with knowledge. And today I would put the title up on top very small and put the bottom, the subtitle, as very, very big, because what we realized on that whole journey, there is no way of treating anything without knowledge. What you've discovered and what you share in your books is actually mandatory for people to know in order to get well. And this whole illusion, this whole concept of selling a cure is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, the problem is, where's true knowledge? What is true knowledge? And that's why I spend a lot of time in my works, talking about the myths and truths, because the work I do, which is primarily with women make decisions based on the knowledge they've gained from magazines, from their doctors, from, the radio, from the newspaper. They believe it's solid, truthful knowledge. And really what it is brainwashing and marketing and advertising. And until we have access to, another understanding, we accept that as real. My favorite movie is The Matrix. I don't know if The Matrix is the whole story. The whole point of The Matrix is that we live in a culture of power and control. And our society is based on power and control. So everything we're fed through the mainstream media is designed to control us. And women are medicalized and pathologized for profit more than men, women. And we need to wake up, because unless we get truthful information, we are going to be part of a huge system that is just sucking the lifeblood and life force out of us for profit. And I think that is what got me, on this warpath more than anything else, is seeing how much women have suffered at the hands of a system that is really misinforming them, mistreating them, misdiagnosing them, everything. I don't recommend women really depend on their gynecologist or their endocrinologist for the ways to get healthy and balanced again, because those systems will just diagnose and treat with drugs. And a lot of the tests they use are inaccurate, like the blood test. The most inaccurate test to assess your hormone levels, which of course is necessary so you can create a treatment plan, is blood testing, blood serum testing. It doesn't give you accurate levels. You need to get saliva testing, and no traditional medical doctor will recommend saliva testing. So that's part of the big problem we have.
Yeah, there is many things. Now, you mentioned it before, and I really would like to go back, because, when you work in the field of cancer, all of a sudden you slip into the field of anti-aging. On one side, it's a bit of a cover up, because you can treat people in regards to health without, going into that lobby, into that fight in regards to cancer. But on the other side, it's also a big business, a very big business. And there is huge impact in bioidentical hormones. And I would like to have your opinion in regards to that.
Well, I'll give you my opinion. I've always been a bit of a heretic. I I don't know why I always find myself just, out of the box, and I'm out of the box when it comes to the use of bioidentical hormones. I mean, I was definitely out of the box. HRT. I was warning about the dangers of HRT when it was the darling of the medical profession. And now bioidentical hormones is the darling of integrative medicine profession and even the traditional world. Well, here's my take on it. And it goes back to understanding, first of all, that our ovaries don't shut down, that our body is able to make a transition. We do have the wherewithal to support production of estrogen and support the body's need for progesterone, testosterone, androgen-like hormones. And, I'm a big fan of Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine really excels at menopause, or in that midlife time, for men and for women. It understands how to rejuvenate and regenerate the reproductive system, the life force, the energies. I actually take Chinese herbs all the time. I don't take bioidentical hormones. When back in my 40s, when I went through this big, revelation, and I was experiencing the night sweats and anxiety attacks and arthritis and Hashimoto's and all this stuff, I first used natural progesterone, and it was a revelation. Natural progesterone changed those symptoms. I got rid of those night sweats. I found my sleep improved. I had less, my arthritis went away. There's a lot of major things happened. And I was so, just overwhelmed, awed by this whole revelation, this new discovery of me and my hormones, which I knew nothing about. And I just talked a lot about it in my book, Hormone Heresy. I write a lot about natural progesterone. In the recent edition, I've gone on from that, because while progesterone, one of those key hormones that protects against breast cancer and uterine cancer and autoimmune diseases and so many problems, is necessary. It's a piece of a bigger picture, and unless we understand the bigger picture, we don't understand what we need for hormonal balance. So here's what I want to say. First of all, our body has the capacity to remain nourished, to have our hormones balanced as we move on to stages of life. We get very deficient in progesterone, but that is really the reason why we need to look after the root cause of what is going to support our hormones throughout our life, and that's the adrenal glands. And the adrenal glands, critical glands that impact our hormones, that impact hormone balances, impact the thyroid, and hormonal balance to create hormonal balance, in whether you're in your 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s, or 80s, or beyond, you've got to have well-nourished, functioning adrenals. They rule all these systems, from hormones to inflammation to immune system to digestion to blood sugar balancing to our brain. Having said that, let me just say, unless and remember also that our fat cells make estrogen. So if you are overweight, you are producing more estrogen in your body. If you're in perimenopause, you generally are estrogen dominant, progesterone deficient. These are not conditions where you would want to add more estrogen into your body, right? You already have lots of estrogen. So what I tell women is this: to understand what's going on with their hormones, they've got to get a test that's properly assessing their hormonal levels. We just mentioned that briefly. Women must get a saliva test before they ever want to be put on hormones, particularly estrogen. I am also not a big fan of testosterone, because testosterone can metabolize into estrogen in a woman's body. So you can be adding to more estrogen. Libido, which is why many women are put on testosterone, is the result of depleted adrenal glands. You've got to rebuild the systems that are depleted as through stress, through life, that's what ages us. That's what aging is, depletion of these systems. There are natural tendencies to get depleted as we go through life. There are accelerated ways we get depleted through stress and poor nourishment, but there are natural ways to rebuild and nourish and regenerate these systems. And when it comes to bioidentical hormones, women need to know they're not inevitable things that you have to do. I do not do any hormones at all. I don't do bioidentical hormones anymore at all. I did progesterone, that was it. I spend a lot of my time in my own health protocols nourishing my adrenal glands and supporting that system and function with vitamins, herbs, and lifestyle and meditation and sleep and everything that's required. And only if a saliva test indicates that you are truly deficient in estrogen and the ratios are altered, then it would be appropriate to use, if they wanted to go that way, the lowest possible dose of estrogen to help create that balance. We are not designed to be having hormones at 60 and 70 of a 25-year-old. That is a myth, and I think it's going to be proven to be a disaster down the track. We need to focus on building our health, rejuvenating, regenerating the systems, which we know we have the capacity to do, and we need to get the proper tests that allow us to have a true insight into what's going on with our bodies. And personally, as a practitioner, I use homeopathic hormones, which do not have any adverse deleterious effects, but can alter and bring things back into alignment naturally, if that's really required.
Yeah.
So that's my thought on the subject. Yes.
But that's very good. I think that the biggest problem we have is that everybody jumps on what's new and thinks science has enough backup, but it's like guinea pigs, like you try out so many new things and it's always after a certain time that we discover all the backfalls, all the backdrops, all the difficulties that come from that. And that's really difficult. So I've been thinking...
And Marcus, it comes back. Well, I just want to say it comes back to this thing of getting knowledge, because the bioidentical movement is based on the same lies and myths that fueled HRT. Women, ovaries give up the ghost, they run out of estrogen, and that's the myth. So it's just, we haven't changed paradigms, we haven't jumped ship, we're still on the same ship, called different names based on different, on the information that is still flawed and erroneous. So sure. So women think, well, I run out of estrogen. So bioidentical hormone sounds good. They sound more natural. The estrogen used in hormone replacement therapy and the estrogen used in bioidentical hormones is the exact same drug, plant-based estrogens. So you're not getting any different in the kind of estrogen, and most women are either not requiring it or they are put on too high a dose, and I see it all the time by doctors who do not have the knowledge, the true knowledge.
Yeah. I would like to come back to what you said before, and it's stuck in my mind. It's in regards to, you said in 3 days or in a 7-day period, by eating naturally, the levels of bisphenol A go down. It's known that toxins have a tendency to really get stuck in our body because our body really doesn't know how to get them out. Is not the detoxification process a very intense part of healing?
Well, if someone is chronically ill, obviously toxins have been building up for decades, and that requires, a very thorough protocol of detoxification of your lymph, your kidneys, your liver. You've got to follow a program, basically, guided by a practitioner. But doesn't it make sense that, as we understand, we live in a toxic world. We're breathing toxins, drinking toxins, eating toxins, that we should find ways to support our body's ability to deal with it and manage this overload. I think that if we support our body, we can certainly compensate for the vast exposure. We need to regularly work with, first of all, real food that helps the body to heal. We need to then look at certain protocols or certain programs that supports our body in its ability to detoxify. In my books, I talk to a woman who specializes in breast cancer and preventing breast cancer and treating women with breast cancer. And one of the things I remember her saying is that, every household should have an infrared sauna, for instance, or some form of sauna. I like infrared saunas. They do, Scandinavia has lower rates of cancer because they're using their saunas to detoxify. So she said that saunas, however you do them, whether it's the infrared or just the dry heat saunas, whatever, some sort of sauna should be in every home in the 21st century to support people and people's bodies in eliminating toxins. And I think that's true. I just purchased a little inexpensive portable infrared sauna that I use several times a week. Sit in it for an hour, watch Netflix when I'm sitting in my sauna. I think we should be doing things that are giving our liver support. That could be with nutrition, specific liver-targeted nutrition. It could be with some homeopathic remedies that support liver detoxification, milk thistle, products that increase glutathione levels. There's just lots of ways to go that we don't have to build up such huge reservoirs of toxins. I think it's part of the strategy for hormonal health, for keeping our body young, for helping to restore from illness, is to find strategies that make detoxification something we incorporate into our life. And then there are times of the year, usually springtime and fall are the two ideal times to perhaps do more in-depth cleanse and detoxification if you're not dealing with a chronic illness, if you're just wanting to create a regimen that supports you on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, and I think a very important factor is that as well, detoxifying the mind. That we do not only focus on our physical side, but also in regards to stress. A lot of people say, going on holiday is a very important thing, and I believe it's not the holiday. It's like breaking free of our normal pattern. And we realize a lot of people who go into an environment where they don't abuse, like eat unhealthy ice creams and everything, when they go into a holiday, which is like a center or some kind of a retreat where they learn healthy cooking, healthy lifestyle, meditations and all those things, have huge impact on health and regulating hormones and hormone levels.
Well, there's no doubt about it. I was a psychotherapist, mind-body psychotherapist before I became a naturopath, and that's what I was focusing on in the practice that I had, very successful practice, helping to diffuse these misperceptions that create the stress, that impede the energies that flow into the body. In Hormone Heresy, I interviewed a traditional Chinese medical doctor, very successful doctor in New York City, who has seen, at that time, he was working with over 300 cases of women with breast cancer. He said there was not one woman who, in his assessment, wasn't dealing with emotions of anger. So it was a primary emotion. And he said in anger actually was, and he could see where they had their cancer, where the tumor was, what side and what area of the breast, which related to what meridians ran, what energy systems ran through it, which were related to certain emotions as well. And he said, the anger was generally the result of women who couldn't say no, didn't have the self-esteem to take care of their needs, and were dealing with anger. A lot of it was suppressed. So it's not something that they were even conscious of, but they were feeling this anger, and that emotion impeded the energy flows and proper functioning of the systems of the body, and just tended to, manifest in a chronic pattern. And it's a chronic pattern. I mean, breast cancer is a chronic condition. It doesn't just pop up overnight. It only shows up in a mammogram when it's been there for 8 to 10 years in most cases, right? That's why you need sonography rather than mammography to detect things earlier.
Yes, yeah. Yeah, there is so much we could talk about. It's like an endless journey. And especially when you get into the understanding, like we were talking to many cancer specialists, and there is so many contributing factors, and it's like peeling an onion. Many said that dental issues, cavities, root canal fillings have a very strong influence in the meridian, in the energy flow, and almost 70% of all breast cancers related to dental problems, to emotional problems. I think it's really a question of every individual needs to peel their own onion. What makes me sick? Where is my problem? Where do I suppress my immune system? And I think that's actually the whole factor. Where do I suppress my immune system with an overload?
Well, I think this is the gift of the work that you're doing is not just to help people who have been diagnosed with cancer, but for all people watching to understand the importance of starting to take responsibility for their health, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. For those that are watching your fantastic documentary who are not dealing with a chronic illness, hopefully they'll be inspired to take greater steps to look after their health. I talk about getting your team of preventative modalities. You want to use your chiropractor, your acupuncturist, your colon therapist, whatever. You want to use them preventatively. You want to see them on a regular basis to keep you finely tuned, like a good racehorse. You don't want to go to practitioners when you are already complaining of symptoms. By the time you have a symptom, whatever it is, things have progressed quite dramatically down that chronic path. So the real goal is to catch things, nip them in the bud, and there are many modalities that can really find the little things that are starting to go out of balance and then begin to find the strategies to correct them. That's the real goal. That's the real awakening that we all need to understand. And as we do that, we go from strength to strength. And that's certainly been my focus in my life. I've healed my thyroid problems, my Hashimoto's thyroiditis. I healed my insomnia, my anxiety, my depression, my arthritis, my chronic allergies. I had all that stuff going. And by the way, other than that, I thought I was really healthy, which is the big joke on me. If somebody asked me, I'm healthy and I had this litany of symptoms, but I'm healthy, right? Because I was a vegetarian. I'm no longer a vegetarian. It wasn't the right diet, and I wasn't a very enlightened vegetarian anyway. But the journey for me is and this is the thinking I have, how can I create greater health? My goal is optimal health. I'm always thinking, what more can I do to support optimal health and wellness? What more can I do to regenerate my body? I mean, my health now is, my fans are calling. Hello? No, I gotta go. I'll talk to you later. Bye. So my goal at this stage of my life is I want to be a healthy, fit, 70, 80-year-old person. I want to have all my faculties intact. Now is the time we have to start making those choices. And whether you're 30, 40, or 50, or 60, now is the time, because your health or quality of life will be determined by the choices you make today. whether that's the choice to take a vacation or take a choice, to take a course in meditation and yoga, to eat more organic, to find a good integrative practitioner, chiropractor, naturopath, acupuncturist, whatever it is, take that step, because every step you take, you're going to be moving your body and your consciousness towards greater health. And that is really the purpose of everything we're all doing. Help people to take those steps now.
Yeah, and I think one of the key factors is that it's not a one step and then we reach the goal. It's many steps towards the goal, and on the way everything improves.
Well, the greatest travesty to me in people and patients I've talked to who've had some episode of a chronic illness, in this case, when we talk about breast cancer, they go through the treatments, they go through the chemo, they go through the radiation, they get through this horrendous time. And when they're on the other side, they've been given no guidance, no education, no information to do anything different than what they did before. So in people's minds, so much of their disease just happened to them, bad luck, and they were never guided, they were never instructed, they were never educated to say it's time to change your diet, it's time to add more supplements, it's time to maybe do some meditation, which is profoundly important. So they just go on their merry way, going, bad luck, and nothing has changed. That, to me, is the real travesty.
Yeah, that's certainly true. And that's why education. That's why you're here and I'm here, and we're putting it all together, and we help everybody that is willing to learn.
That's right. We're freely giving our time and our energy and our desire to support people to make the better choices that come from getting more empowered with truthful information.
Thank you very much. That was really, really helpful. We will put your videos and everything underneath, and also the links to your radio shows. You do a radio show with a call-in. Would you like to talk about that very short?
Well, I have 2 radio shows. They're internet radio shows, so people can listen to them anywhere in the world. They're all archived. I suggest just going to my website, the homepage, whatwomenmustknow.com, and on that homepage there are links that take you to those 2 shows, so you can access all the archive shows right there. You don't have to be listening on a Monday at 2 p.m. or a Sunday at 4. And I interview wonderful people. The shows, one show is called What Women Must Know. The other show is called The Women's Healing Circle. It's obviously focusing on issues that relate to women's health, but I always say it's not exclusively for women. Men are welcome too, because so much of what we talk about is just about our health in general. So we have authors, and we have practitioners and researchers and forward thinkers and wise elders coming on the show and sharing their wisdom and knowledge and solutions to so many of the challenges we're facing. So it's a great opportunity to keep expanding with more truthful knowledge.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. It was a pleasure to have you with us.
I enjoyed it immensely. Thank you for having me.